Okay, so this discussion guide is now recording. So we are discussing tonight the last 5 chapters of Girl Wash Your Face, chapters 16 through 20. Thank you guys again for jumping on. So let's start off with chapter 16, the lie, I can't tell the truth. For me, my keeper was, I want you to see someone who kept showing up again and again, even when it was tearing her apart. This is a huge, huge takeaway point for me. I know that like what she was discussing and talking about continuing to show up for is something that a lot of us probably can't personally relate to. But for me, this is something that I feel like I strive for every single day. Like, I just want to be that person in the health and fitness world that everybody can see, like, she has struggles. She's a mom. She has 2 kids. Her kid's sick. She was up all night with him. Like, her life's not sunshine and rainbows every single day, but she still shows up. And because she can show up for herself, I want to show up for myself. So that's like, that was my keeper for this chapter. Question number 1 was, what are some of the reasons that Rachel finds it difficult to be honest about the events that this chapter describes? Why does she believe it's important to do so? And do you agree? So I wrote down straight from the book, I want to keep it close to my heart, to hide it away in the hopes that it will hurt me less if it stays hidden. I think we do that often. Like, sometimes we just shove everything behind these walls and we just try to keep them behind. Because if we bring it to the forefront and we actually consciously think about it, it can often be very harmful and hurtful and painful. But at the end of the day, shoving it way back behind the walls is really doing a disservice to you and to everybody around you if you're not facing your problem square on. So that is why she, wanted to kind of keep it, not discuss it. Also, too, I think this is such a hard thing to bring to, to address and to bring to the forefront. This book has now become this like worldwide phenomenon, and I'm sure she was a little bit hesitant to share the truth about adoption. But I can say, from my standpoint, I have had, being in the infertility world, going through IVF for my kids, I have had people that I've known that have gone through the adoption process, and she described it like perfectly to a T. And I have so much respect for her for saying, like, yeah, I really don't care. I'm going to put it out there into the universe. So, why does she believe it's important to do so? She said, but then I understand that when things are hidden, we give power to the fear, the negativity, the lies. I don't want to allow that to happen. Number 2 says, this chapter describes Rachel's small voice urging Rachel to keep trying, even if meant blindly stumbling down a path she could not see. Do you think this is a common experience? So she writes, what I did cling to was faith. Sometimes that faith was tenuous, as though I could barely hang on to it, but it was still there, that small voice that urged me to keep trying. Just one more step, God would whisper. Tomorrow will be better, Dave would say. I love when she said, my faith walk became cautious and unsure compared to the beginning when my faith walk was bold. And this is something that I can relate to, going through the IVF process. Like, when I first started infertility, and in the very beginning, when I didn't have a diagnosis and I hadn't seen a doctor yet, I felt very confident, well, this is what happens. If you struggle to get pregnant, you go and these people get you pregnant. And then each cycle that I failed or that didn't work out, I remember getting more and more cautious with my feelings, and heading into that cycle, maybe a little bit less optimistic and a little bit more cautious than those first couple of cycles. And I definitely started to feel very much more unsure of the process and the diagnosis, and I started to question things a lot more. Do I think it's a common experience? Yes. I think we all have that small voice that we can hear that's literally the thing that keeps us going and pushing forward. Whether that be your faith, whether that be your spouse, whether that be your mom or your dad or your sibling or a best friend. I think we all have that small voice that just forces us to keep going, even though we're kind of stumbling down that blind path. Number 3, what are some of the reasons Rachel gives for why she kept going during her ordeal? What are some of the good things that came out of what happened? So I wrote down a couple of things. She said she got to know and love 4 little girls that even if she never gets to see again, made her life better because she was connected to them. It built a stronger marriage for her. And, you know, she said, if you go through that much together, it will either make you stronger or it'll break you apart. And she said our marriage and us as individuals were braver and bolder and more connected. So those are some of the good things. And why she kept going, she says, I chose to move forward because while I knew I would find pain, I also knew I would draw strength. And I have actually had a lot of people come to me that are going through infertility struggles and say to me, like, you know, how long did it take you? And I said, well, for my son, it was almost 3 years. And for my daughter, it was another 2 years, you know, from the day I decided I wanted to get pregnant to when it actually happened. So it was certainly not a short process by any means. And I've had people come to me and say, you know, like, why did you keep going? Because they're in the rut of it, and they're in it, and they're at that point that I can remember being every single month when every month I would say, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to quit. I'm not going to try again. I'm going to take a month off. But I somehow knew that what I was going through for a reason. And each cycle that I failed, I had to tell myself, I'm going to be stronger because of this. My marriage is going to be stronger because of this. But more importantly, every single cycle that I failed, I kept telling myself, this is going to make me a better mom because I am going to have so much more appreciation. Not that people don't, everybody loves their kids and everybody appreciates their children. But when you struggle for 3 years and you're not sure every day, you question whether or not you're going to be a mom, you appreciate those sleepless nights so much more than maybe somebody who gets pregnant at 16 and had no idea that they were even going to be entering that stage of their life. You know, they're looking at it like, this kid ruined my life. I missed high school because of this kid. I'm exhausted because of this kid. Whereas when you're struggling and it's literally what you want more than anything else in the world, you can appreciate those things so much more. And I loved when she said, yes, it's hard, but our dream didn't go away because it got hard. And I love that because I can remember, again, with my IVF stuff, saying to myself, like, yes, it's hard. And I say this to myself every day still with my health and fitness stuff. Like, yeah, it's hard, but guess what? It's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, every single person would do it. So I just wrote down a couple of other quotes from the chapter that I wanted to point out. She says, I could look at the 6 months prior or 5 years total and choose to be angry, or I could look at the whole long journey and recognize all that we had been given. And I love that quote. One of her tips at the end, you know, at the end of each chapter, there's always like, you know, 3 or 4 bullet points of advice and tips on how to deal with that lie. And she said, surround yourself with people who have also gone through the hardship of being honest, gone through the hardship of being honest about their feelings. This is one of the reasons why I run an IVF support group, because I literally believe that the key to success in this life is surrounding yourself with people that can relate, that can uplift you and encourage you. That's why I do this group. That's why I do the IVF support group. And I wrote down common theme, because if you go back through the book, and I can say this because this is my 3rd time now. When you go back through, almost every single chapter, one of the bullet points is surround yourself with, or look at the people around you, or, you know, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who's your community? Who's your tribe? So that's such a common theme in this group. And I think it's something that I really wanted to stress and point out. Goes back to that quote of, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And if you are not where you want to be in life, you have to take a good hard look at those 5 people and say, you know what, maybe I need to reevaluate who I'm surrounding myself with, and I need to up my average. And then, you know, again, she says, during the process, we felt so alone, and seeking out a community who understood our path would have helped so much. Strength in numbers and strength in community. I can't stress it enough. Okay, chapter 17, the lie. I am defined by my weight. A keeper for me is, and this is a big one, this is something I literally stress all day, every day to everybody that I work with. You need to be healthy. You do not need to be thin. You do not need to be a number on the scale. You do not need to be a size dress or pant. You need to be healthy, period. And so whatever healthy means to you, I think a lot of people get so wrapped up in like a specific number. I have people that'll come to me and be like, but I want to be 120 pounds. And I'm like, that's fantastic. But you're 5'10", and 120 pounds isn't healthy for you. It's highly unlikely you're going to get there. And if you do get there, you're not going to be happy or healthy. So that's a big thing that I wanted to stress, is at the end of the day, you need to be healthy. And that includes physically, mentally, and emotionally. So if you get to where you want to be physically and you're not mentally and emotionally healthy, then that means you're not succeeding. My other keeper was, who you are today is incredible. And you have so many wonderful qualities to offer the world, and they are uniquely yours. There's only one you, and that is our superpower. Like, there's only one Kim, there's only one Marianne, there's only one Erin, and that's what makes you special. So try to get away from trying to become somebody else. Like, be you and be uniquely you, and embrace that. Number 1 says, most women have a story to tell about their relationship with food, weight, and their body. What is your story? If you feel comfortable, share an experience from your life that illustrates part of that relationship. So I've shared some of this throughout the past, 4 weeks, but I'll discuss it a little bit further. So for me, I was 14 when my dad had a heart attack, and I got the phone call. I was the person who got the call. My dad was at a soccer clinic coaching in New Jersey, and my mom was still at work. My brother and my sister were at work, and I was home. I had gotten off the school bus, and the phone rang, and it was somebody who called and said, can I talk to your mom? And I said, well, she's not home. She's at work. And she said, well, honey, could you please, could you get a hold of your mom? Is there another way that I can reach her? Because something is wrong with your dad, and we need to get a hold of her immediately. And for me at 14, and this was before like the whole age of cell phones. So we had cell phones, but my mom kept it in her purse, and it was dead half the time. I don't know if any of you guys ever, went through that. But now, people are like attached to their phones. This was when it was like, yeah, we have a cell phone for an emergency. And so, I called my mom's phone. It was dead. It was after school hours. The receptionist had already left. At that time, if it was after 4, the receptionist was long gone, and she was not going to answer that phone. And so I couldn't get a hold of my mom for almost like an hour and a half. Couldn't get a hold of my brother, couldn't get a hold of my sister. And finally my mom came home, and I told her, and it was this big disaster. And my brother that night had gotten into the night before I'd gotten into a huge fight with my dad. My brother was going through some issues at the time with alcohol and whatnot. And he was just like at a stage in his life where he was just fighting my mom on everything and anything. And my mom looked at my brother square in the eyes and said, if you're the reason why my husband dies, I'll never forgive you. That's something that like literally sticks so deep in my soul still to this day. Like, I'm so afraid of conflict because in my head, I'm like, what if this is the last thing that I say? I had a discussion with my parents that didn't go well yesterday. It was our 10-year anniversary, and my mom bailed on us, and we had zero support and zero help. And it got ugly because I finally got to a point where I was like, I need to stand up for my marriage and my family and myself. And I don't have support in this life. And it's really hard to go through life as a mom of 2 with zero support. And so it all came out. And the second that it all went downhill, I spent the rest of the day on my 10-year wedding anniversary with panic attacks nonstop, because all I could think in my head was, what if this is the last thing or the last conversation I have with my mom and my dad? So there's that I carried with me from that experience. But what I really carried with me was, my dad came home from the hospital, and I can remember it was his birthday shortly after he came home. And my mom was like, for Dad's birthday cake, we've got to make it with apple juice because we're not using oil anymore. Oil is bad. And, all of a sudden our potatoes were mashed cauliflower. And I would always be like, I was 14. So I'd be like, Mom, why do we have to have cauliflower? Like, why can't we eat potatoes? Well, potatoes cause Daddy's heart attack. And oil is really bad for Daddy's heart. And so like all of these things that had just been a constant in my life. And, I just ate food, whatever was put in front of me, I ate it. All of a sudden, I developed this insane fear of food, because to me, food could have caused my dad's heart attack. And that's how I processed it at 14. So I developed an eating disorder, and I developed this insane fear of food that I still carry with me to this day. And you know, I kind of felt out of control in my life at that time. That's okay, Marianne, don't worry about it. I felt very out of control in my life. And so I controlled the uncontrollable by controlling what I was putting in my body or not putting in my body. I, you know, would make things up in my head like, well, potatoes are bad and potatoes are this, so I probably shouldn't have a sandwich either. And I literally, and those that went to high school with me can attest to this, I was the girl who, my dad was on the Smart Start diet. So I would pack 3/4 cup of Smart Start cereal, and I would bring it to lunch. That was my lunch every single day, even though I was playing 90 minutes of competitive soccer and, you know, crazy athletic stuff. I would have my 3/4 cups of Smart Start. I would buy a fat-free milk, and that would be my lunch. And that's what I survived off of all through high school. And then I would find, you know, I would get home, and if my parents were having a treat that night, I'd be like, well, no, I can't eat that because that's going to be cholesterol and that's going to cause me to have heart issues, and I'm going to die young and all of these things. And so it's still something that I struggle with today. And I loved in the book where Rachel said, it was such a simple quote, but it resonated with me so much. I didn't understand any of my pain or trauma at the time. I'm 34. I just turned 34 last month, and I didn't understand where my eating issues came from until I was in therapy 2 years ago. And I just kind of, you know, we were talking about all sorts of other things that I've been through and stuff that, you know, affects me on a daily basis. And the therapist said to me, let me ask you something. How is your, I was having lots of symptoms that they thought maybe it was panic attacks, maybe it was a vitamin deficiency. And he said, well, let me ask you something. How is your eating habits? And at the time, I just had my daughter. I was severely postpartum. And when my life feels out of control, I control it by restricting what I'm eating. That's just always how it's been. And so I was barely eating. I was breastfeeding or attempting to breastfeed because she wouldn't latch. And I was spiraling way out of control. And he said, I can just tell you're struggling. And we need to figure out why, because you're not only trying to support your own body, but you're also trying to support your daughter's. And if you're not eating, she's not getting what she needs to survive. And we worked through it, and he helped me figure out how 18 years, something after 18 years I couldn't figure out on my own. She said, food is an easy companion and food has never let me down. And when she said, eat until you're ugly and worthless and the outside finally matches the inside, I can tell you that there has been so many people that I've worked with that will say exactly that. And I just feel like a lot of the times we turn to food like it's the answer or like it is our companion, but oftentimes it actually ends up being the enemy, because what you enjoy for 5-10 minutes maybe, usually you end up hating yourself for hours, days, sometimes even weeks after that. So I always say, you know, food is not a companion. Food is the enemy. Food is the enemy when it's something like you're turning to food to solve your problems. Food is not the enemy. Food is fuel. But you know what I'm saying. Rachel writes, it's not your weight that defines you, but the care and consideration you put into your body absolutely does. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? She says, my weight was no longer just a part of me like hair or teeth. Now it was something that defined me. It was a testament to all the ways that I was wrong. And then she goes on to say, I also believe that humans were not made to be out of shape and severely overweight. We function better mentally, emotionally, and physically when we take care of our bodies with nourishment, water, and exercise. And this is what I preach all day, every day. So do I agree 1,000%? It is not your weight that defines you, but how you care and consider what you put into your body, how you care for yourself, how you care for your body. Because just like she says, you know, I always say to people, it's like if you have a car and you keep putting like the worst grade gasoline that you can into the car. Or maybe you put in like 75% gasoline and 25% water. The car still may be able to chug along by the fumes of whatever the 75% gas is that you have in there. But if you keep changing that, and then it becomes 50% gas, 50% water, do you see what I'm saying? What you're fueling yourself with, if you're skimping out on that, eventually it's going to catch up to you and you're going to shut down. And it's not just mentally or physically, it's mentally and emotionally as well. Oh, there was something that I just had a really good point that I was going to say. It was something along the lines of what we put into our body. I'm not going to be able to remember it, but I'll think of it. It'll come to me. Okay, so let me flip because I have something else written down here. Okay, I wrote down one mistake, like having a piece of cake at a birthday party, would signal total annihilation to my brain. I was just talking to a friend actually 2 nights ago who's been doing this whole Beachbody thing with me, and she's been doing Time Nutrition. And she said to me, she goes, I do really well. And then the second I slip, like let's say I have a bite of a donut, she says, I beat myself up so much over that donut. And I'm like, well, I had a bite of the donut, I ruined it, and I'll have 3 donuts before I know it. And so I said to her, she goes, I don't understand why. That thought process makes 0 sense. She's a very analytical person. She's very scientific like I am. She's a pharmacist as well. So she needs like logical explanations for things. And she's like, that doesn't make sense, does it? And I said, it may not make sense, but believe it or not, that is way more common than somebody having a bite of a donut and saying, okay, I had a bite. I'm just going to reel it in and I'm going to make up for it and I'm going to work that much harder. Believe it or not, 9 times out of 10, a person who slips on their diet will completely throw in the towel and basically give up on, throw it all in. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the word? Like if you sabotage, that was the word I was thinking of. So basically you sabotage the whole thing because of one small slip up. And that's something that I feel like is a mindset shift. Being able to say to yourself, fall off the wagon, exactly, Erin. Being able to say to yourself, okay, I had a bite of a donut. It's not the best thing, but it's also not the worst thing. It was one bite. I'm going to dust myself off and I'm going to move on. So I shared this analogy with her the other night, and I think I shared it on here before, but I'm going to share it again in case I haven't, because it's one of my favorite analogies, and it's something that I share with every single person that I coach. It's the bike analogy. So, you know, when you start off, like when my son was learning how to ride his bike, he gets on the bike, he's got to first make the decision to ride the bike, right? Like he has to decide that he wants to ride the bike, because like we'll talk about in another chapter, you have to make the decision. You can only want things for yourself. So I can want him to ride a bike, but if he doesn't want to ride the bike, he's not ultimately going to ride the bike, right? So you have to make the decision to ride the bike. You have to decide you want to do it. And you have to get the bike. You get the bike out, you get it on the road, and your parent, my husband in this case, is holding the seat of the bike, right? Because we're learning without training wheels. And so there's that security in the beginning of the support of knowing that somebody's holding you, they've got you, they're there with you in case you start to fall. And then they have to start to pedal the bike, right? But in order to pedal the bike, they first have to know, how the hell do I pedal this bike? It's just like with health and nutrition. Maybe it's a brand new meal plan that you've never looked at before. Like you can't just get on a bike and just know as a child who's never ridden a bike before. So you have to get the motion. You have to figure out how to move your feet, how to push the pedal with your toes or your heels or however you want to do it. Then you start to pedal and you're starting to like gain momentum. And you have to push really hard in the beginning to get that bike moving. But then as the wheels start rolling and rolling, you're gaining momentum. And so you don't have to work as hard. Now, let's say my husband lets go of the seat and he's pedaling along because he's gained momentum and he is off. And we're like, he's good. We don't need to hold him anymore. He's figured it out. But then he starts to fall, right? He starts to lean, or maybe he hits a bump in the road and he starts to lose his balance. There's 2 options. Number 1, you find a way to regain your balance. So if you're falling this way, you lean this way, right? You shift and you figure out how to stay on that damn bike. The second option is you let yourself fall off. So many people feel themselves start to fall off the bike and they let themselves fall. And what I always say is it is a hell of a lot harder to pick yourself off that road, pick the bike up, get back on the bike, start to pedal again slowly, start to gain momentum and get going again than it is to just go from here to here and catch yourself. So I always give that analogy, and I literally said to my friend last night or yesterday when we were talking, or 2 nights ago, whenever it was, and I texted her today and I said, are you on the bike? And she said, I'm on the bike. And I said, did you start to waver at all? And she said, I did, but I balanced myself back on the bike. So keep that analogy, and not just for health and fitness, guys, for literally every aspect of your life. Like if you are crushing it at your job and you start to suck at your job, don't just throw in the towel. Don't be that person that just says, well, I should quit my job because I suck at it. Be the person that says, I'm gonna work so hard to be better and to do better, and just dive into it and regain that momentum. It's all about momentum in your life. Once you gain the momentum, you'll be taken off and you'll be flying so high. Okay. Does your creator love you as you are? Yes, but he gave you a body with all its strengths and even its weaknesses as a gift. It's an offense to your soul to continue to treat yourself so badly. It is a disservice to you to treat yourself badly. And that's another thing that I stress a lot. Like what you fuel your body with, you are doing yourself a disservice if it's not good, healthy fueling of your body. And that's for everything, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. What you put into your mind is just as important as what you put into your mouth. Okay, and then I loved when she said, bottom line is, if the calories you consume in a day are fewer than the calories you burn off in a day, you will lose weight, period, the end. So many people overcomplicate health and fitness. So many people overcomplicate weight loss. That's it. If the calories out are more than the calories in, you will lose weight. Edit your media. There are seasons where the people you're following should be different than other seasons. If you are pregnant, don't start following a bunch of Instagram fitness models, okay? Because it's not going to serve you well, your mind, your body, your soul, none of it. If you're a new mom and you're following all of these like superhumans that somehow pop kids out and they have abs the next day, like not doing yourself a service. And then preparation was another point of hers. I always say, my favorite saying is, if you fail to plan, plan to fail. So at the end of the day, you have to set yourself up for success by planning everything out. If you want to accomplish a healthier life, map out how you'll get there. Okay, chapter 18, the lie, I need a drink. A keeper for me, you're never going to move past the problem if you can't admit to having it in the first place. And then I loved when she defined need. Need implies that something is essential and necessary. That is such a huge point and something that like I feel like is so important to focus on, because we say we need things a lot. And I wanted to like digress a little bit and kind of go a little off topic, because this is not what the topic's about in this book, in the chapter. But when one of the best tips that I've gotten as a wife, we were in marriage counseling and the therapist said to us, I kept saying, I need that. Well, I need this. Like, I need this. And I kept saying, I need. And he said to me, Kim, and he said this, a need is something that is essential and necessary for you to survive. You're describing wants. There's a difference between what you want and what you need. And that's true for every aspect of your life, but it's very true for marriage. You're never going to find somebody that meets every single thing that you want. You just have to find the person that can meet what you need. The things that are like, I cannot live happily in this life if this is not met. It takes a village. Yes, it does. That's right, Erin. And she said strength is never easy to come by. I loved her weightlifting analogy where she talks about like your muscles get torn down in a workout. Like a lot of people don't know that, but our muscle fibers, break. And then overnight while we're sleeping, they have to repair. And that repair is actually how we build muscle. And so it's that theory of it's not easy to always be strong. Oftentimes you actually break before you're stronger. And it's important to remember that. Like when you are broken, saying to yourself, like, I am so broken right now, but that means that I'm going to be stronger because of this. Number one was think back on a time of stress or difficulty in your life. If possible, pinpoint at least one way that experience made you stronger. Do you think stress always makes people stronger? Why or why not? And what makes the difference? So for me, my most stressful time, my two most stressful times in my life were, minus my dad's heart attack, were postpartum with Mackenzie and IVF. When we were in going through IVF, one of the requirements was you have to go to a session of marriage counseling. So you have to go and sit down with a counselor that works at the reproductive office, and you have to sit and talk and, you know, talk about how you two are dealing with going through this infertility process. And I'll never forget when the marriage counselor said to us, 70% of couples that go through infertility struggles end up divorced. And I can remember sitting there, and it scared the absolute shit out of me when she said that. But she said, that's why you're here. That's why we do this. Because this is going to either make you stronger or it's going to break you. It's a huge number, 70%. Like, and you think about it, and it's like, these are couples that walk in trying to further their lives and grow their family and share this special thing together, and to think that something like that can tear them apart. But it just goes to show you that, you know, those broken times, like when your muscle fibers are completely torn, something has to happen for them to be repaired. So her saying to us, like, this could break you. It's definitely going to challenge you. Now it's up to you guys to repair it and to move forward stronger because of it. And I will say, like, a time of stress or difficulty in my life that made me stronger, I feel like I'm the mom that I am because I went through IVF. Like, I very rarely put myself first. In fact, hardly ever. I can count on one hand the number of days that I've slept away from my kids, and it's 2. And it's been because I had my daughter. My daughter's never slept away from me. She's almost 3 in December. And that's not to say that that's what's right for every mom, and that's what every mom should do. But my point is, I'm so involved. I love the shit out of my kids, and I enjoy all of the moments. Even last night when it's my 10-year wedding anniversary, and they're waking up every 5 minutes, and all I wanted was time with my husband. And it's like, we fill up the jacuzzi tub and they wake up, and then we try to watch a movie and they wake up. In those moments, I think I have a different level of patience, because I'm like, these are the nights I dreamt of. Like, I can remember, and I had to sit last night and say to myself, yeah, this isn't the best 10-year anniversary, but you know what? I had a 1-year anniversary and I had a 2-year anniversary where we were on a cruise, and I was in tears basically the entire cruise. I had people waiting on me hand and foot, serving me left and right. I was getting drinks here and there, and I had not a worry in the world. I'm on a ship in the middle of the ocean, and I was miserable because all I could think about was, when we get home, I have to do another cycle. Or, to be truthful, one of the 2 trips, I was actually in the middle of a cycle on a medication that I was so sensitive to the sun. I still have scars on my legs because my skin on my legs burnt so badly. And I can remember being on those cruises and being like, why is this happening to me? All I want is to have a kid. All I want is to be a mom. All I want is to have a baby. And so last night, when I'm sitting there feeling sorry for myself that it's my 10-year anniversary and I'm in Westfield, Mass, and I'm, up with a sick child, and I have had 0 time with my husband, it helped me to stop and say, well, you know what, Kim, anniversary number 1 and number 2, you spent in tears because you didn't have a child in your life and you didn't know if you would. And so while you don't have time with your husband right now, you did then, and that wasn't the answer to happiness. Just be thankful for what you have. Stress can make you stronger if you can find a way to grow from the experience that caused stress. That's the difference. Stress will not always make you stronger. It can break somebody so fast, and usually when it breaks you is when you're not finding a way to embrace what's happening, to embrace the stress or the difficulty in your life, and finding a way to grow from it. The difficult seasons we walk through are how we learn to build up strength to manage any situation. That's so crucial. Like, that's a quote that I feel like I could put all over my house. Because there's going to be something every day, guys. You're going to walk through so much shit in your lifetime, and there's going to be so many more hard times than there is good times. But if you can shift your mindset to say, like, I am going through this for a reason, and this is ultimately going to make me stronger, then you will be so much more happy and successful in your life. Okay, a couple of things that I wrote down is, again, the definition of need. It's something that's essential or necessary. I loved when she said, I don't want them to know a version of me that used anything to dull the sharp edges. So this is a really sensitive topic for me, and it was something that I contemplated sharing. But I have a member of my family that's an alcoholic. And so this chapter was really, really hard for me to read. It's still hard for me to discuss. And the reason why it's really hard for me is because I swear that I'm going to break the cycle. It's been a cycle. It's been a cycle, and it's just kept going. And I'll be damned if I'm going to be that mom that my kids see I'm using something to dull the sharpened edges. Like, I don't want them to ever say, like, geez, mom was, half in the bag tonight because she, couldn't deal with the stress of life, or she was screaming and yelling at us. Like, I will be damned if my kids think that of me, or I'm that kind of a person. So this is like a super sensitive topic for me. But it's something that's really, really important for me. And it's been something that will be in the forefront of my brain for the rest of my life. And I always say to my husband, don't let me be like blank, because it's just not, it's a non-negotiable for me. It's not an option. So I'm super cautious. I think that when you are a child of an alcoholic, you can go one of two ways. Either you go the way of, you follow in the footsteps, or you go the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is you never want to drink ever. And that's me. So it's very rare that I drink. I drank a lot in college, and then I quickly realized, like, hey, I think that I'm kind of setting myself up to go down the same path, and that's just not an option. And I reeled it in real quick, and it changed a lot when I had my son. And I hardly ever have a drink now. And if I do, it's maybe like a couple of sips of whatever my husband's having. Because I've just realized that it's just not what I want to do with my life. And it is genetic and hereditary. I don't care what anybody says, it is. And like she said in the book, drinking can be an attempt to escape, but you can't escape the realities of your life forever. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that while some people may think that drinking is an escape and that it fixes problems, it's literally the shittiest Band-Aid you'll ever put on. Because just like, when you rip that Band-Aid off and it hurts like hell and it stings, that's like what drinking is. Like, you can drown yourself all you want and drown your sorrows with alcohol. You're just going to wake up hungover as hell the next day, and every single thing you were trying to escape is still there. Now you just feel like shit trying to deal with it. I loved her analogy about antibiotics, because as a pharmacist, I felt like I could super relate to that. A lot of us probably were like, yay, go antibiotics. But when she said your immune system needed to be put through the test, it needed to get sick and learn what tools were necessary to pull itself out of there. They don't medicate because they're strong enough to manage on their own, and they know that medicating will likely make them weaker. So two separate thoughts, but the antibiotic reference really resonated with me, and it's something that I have to again, keep going through in my mind. Sure, I could take this or do this, and that could temporarily solve the problem, but it's not a long-term fix. And it could ultimately make me more susceptible to other problems and other issues, right? It's just a mask. It's just a Band-Aid. Number two, what tends to be your drug of choice for dealing with stress? What's the difference between indulging in a little stress relief and self-medicating? Where's the line? You guys know where I'm going with this. My drug of choice is exercise. I've had people, I had somebody ask me, this was actually interesting because it was a family member of mine. And they said to me one day, do you think you have an addictive personality? We were talking about everything. And I said, I guess, not that it's nothing that I'm worried about. Why? And they were like, well, just because you definitely are addicted to your exercise. And I was like, there's a lot worse things that somebody could be addicted to. That's just the way I look at it. Everybody self-medicates with something. And for me, it's my workouts. My husband will say to me, there are times where I'll call him and I'll be just like going off. You know, when you pick up the phone, you're like, ah, and you just like rant, you yell at him about everything. You don't even care. You have no mercy. You're like, son of a bitch, the trash wasn't taken out. This happened, the soda spilled, the kid knocked over the goddamn glass, it broke, and it's not even their fault, but you're just like lighting into them. When I do that, my husband will go, honey, go work out. And usually it's because he knows I haven't. Like he has so much confidence, because if I have worked out, that never happens. So the difference between indulging in a little stress relief and self-medicating, we all know the line. But basically, it's a difference between, hey, this would be fun, or this would be nice for tonight, versus that need, where she talks about it becomes something that is essential for you to survive. I also have had a family member who said to me, you know, when I am on my way home from work, I get like that itch to like, I can like start tasting the wine, and I can like feel how it's going to make me feel. And I said, that's when it becomes a problem. When you are getting to the point where like you're rushing home from work to get home the second you can to like drown yourself in that feeling, it's a problem. Okay, what are some of Rachel's recommendations for handling stress without the medication of substances or other unhealthy pursuits? Can you think of others, maybe some that would work better for you? Make a list. My alarms keep going up. So she lists running, having dinner with girlfriends, praying, going to therapy, allowing myself to cry. These are the best methods I know for building up strength necessary to carry on. These habits make me strong enough to handle the hard stuff, meaning I don't reach for the easy way out. And I love that. I love all of the things that she lists. I think that those are the things that I find help me. The one thing that she didn't list that's a big help for me is quality time with my husband. When we're connected, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but we've talked about this a lot. When we're connected, the whole world could be erupting in like a massive earthquake, or I don't even care, tornado, whatever. And it would be okay. Like my tolerance for things are so much higher when we're connected. So I think that that's one thing she didn't mention that I have found recently is a huge thing to focus on, is that quality time with your spouse and that connection. Because I feel like that makes me able to tolerate way more, especially when it comes to my kids, or when we're on the same page, when we're functioning as a team. Okay, my takeaways: before I had kids, I never really understood why anyone drank. I love when she said that, because it's so true. And then alcohol gave me courage. It washed away things like anxiety, fear, frustration. We've all done that, right? Like we've all had that thing we're going to that we're like, we need a drink before we head out. Like everybody's done it. It's if you're going to like some big function, or maybe it's a wedding, or maybe it's a baby shower, or you know, whatever it might be, like some awkward work function where you're out with these people that you've never really hung out with before or something. I am super sensitive to this whole thing. I tend to, because of how I've been, you know, because of how I've grown up, I tend to do this thing where, like, let's say one of my friends I haven't heard from in a while will send me a text that says, I love you. Maybe we were having a conversation. Maybe we weren't. Maybe it was just random. Or, hey, was just thinking about you. Wanted to tell you I miss you. I literally look, when I get a meaningful text, a meaningful phone call, email, whatever it might be, I look at the time. When was that sent? And I'll say to myself, could they have been drinking at that time? So that has been a lot of my life when I have felt loved, or when things have been overly expressed. And so I have to like get away from this. I have to say that, yeah, alcohol gives people courage, and people are sometimes more lovey-dovey and whatever. But I have to say, like, no, Kim, this person is not just drunk telling you that they love you. Like, they love you, and that's okay. And I have to accept that. So that's something that I'm still working on, that I have trouble with sometimes. You know what I mean? You have those people that you hear from them at like 9 o'clock at night, and they're professing their love to you, and you're like, well, they might have had a drink or two before. Okay. Chapter 19, the lie. We're almost there. There's only one way to be. A keeper, when you know better, you do better. It's a famous quote from Maya Angelou. I love it. I live it. I breathe it. I believe that the more that you know, the better your life will be, the better you are as a person. There's like a bird-sized moth in my house. I don't know what this is. Okay. Sorry. It's like this massive thing flying around here. Okay. Number one, why do you think people tend to draw lines in the sand that separate them from others? How does this harm people? So she says, we're walking through a season of people drawing lines in the sand. As much as I hate to admit it, I understand those lines. I was once drawing them. Regardless of how our looks may differ, we are more alike than we are different. I also believe I can't possibly love them well if I first demand that they be like me in order to receive it. And the last thing I wrote down is the ability to seek out community with people who are different from me makes me a stronger, better version of myself, helps me stretch and grow into the best version of me. I used to be somebody who believed that like it was, you know, if they didn't agree with me and my thought process, that we weren't the same and they couldn't be a part of my tribe. What I've learned through health and fitness and all of this and coaching, I attract very different people to me than, you know, like my team. I am a very words of affirmation person. Like I'm like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. You're so wonderful. I love you so much. And my people are acts of service people that give to me through acts of service. My husband is an acts of service person, and they are not words of affirmation people. So like we had to figure that out, and we had to navigate that, because I used to be like, you know, I do something for my team and then they wouldn't say thank you. And I'd be like, all a girl wants is a thank you. Like, how is that so hard? And meanwhile, I'd be like, oh my God, you're the best. I love you so much. Thank you for doing that. You're the best friend ever. You know, and I would be like this big, and meanwhile, they're probably like, do something for me, because they're an acts of service person. So I have realized that I surround myself now in this Beachbody community, like people from all walks of life. And I love it. I love that basically no one is like me. And I'm not saying that as like a, you know, cocky, arrogant thing. I'm saying that we're just all so unique and so different. But I love this because I was on a call one time for our team, and the person who was speaking said, the best team in all of Beachbody, I think it was actually Carl Deichler, our CEO, who said, when I looked at them, so there was this big team retreat for the #1 coach in all of Beachbody. And he went to her team retreat, and he was like, I talked to each and every single one of them, and I asked them, like, you know, what are your values? Who are you as a person? And how have you been successful in this business? And he said not a single one of them answered the same way. And he said that is the key to success, is surrounding yourself with people that your weaknesses are their strengths and vice versa. And I love that so much. And so that's the mindset that I go into everything, every relationship, everything that I do. Like if I surround myself with people whose strengths, I used to look at, I'm a very competitive person. I would be like, well, she's better at me than this. Like, I don't want to be her friend, because then when we go here, she's going to be the one that does that. Do you know what I'm saying? And now I'm like, oh, she's going to kick ass at that. So I want her on my team. Let's go. And I've realized that them having strengths that are my weaknesses only strengthens me as a person, because I'm going to learn from their strengths. Like Teresa and I, two total different people, totally different. I am a very big words of affirmation. She is very big acts of service. I am the biggest cluster FUCK when it comes to organization. And she can run, like her challenge groups are like bing, bang, boom. She follows the challenge group guide. She is solid. She doesn't miss a single post. We balance each other out so well. So I can be the, hi, welcome to our team. We love you so much. And she's like the, let's get shit done. And so we work, and we have like such a solid foundation of a team and a group, and I love the hell out of her. Okay. Do you think that drawing lines could ever be a good thing? Explain your thinking. And I wrote down, will the people you're surrounded by be good influences and help you grow into better versions of yourself? The only time I think it's okay to draw that line in the sand is those people that are toxic, that you surround yourself with them and you leave those relationships feeling like total crap, whether it be you hang out with them or you go on a trip with them or whatever it is. You draw the line in the sand and you say, here is my positive life and here is where you're going to stay, because you don't have time for that. What are some practical steps you could take to create community with someone whose tribe is different from yours? Change the way you speak and listen. Ask questions. I love that. Ask questions. Like, you can learn so much from people. Ask questions. Push yourselves out of your comfort zone and challenge your outlook. And I wrote down the quote that she said, look at the pictures in your book. Are they all one color? My takeaway, my uncertainty is proof that I was trying to grow, and different isn't unique to them. Different is their normal. There are no lines in our sandbox. So she was talking about that with her kids, and that was like, no, you're okay, Erin, you're all right. That was like something that really stuck out for me. So when we looked for a preschool for my son, he had been home with me for 4 years at the time we were looking at preschools. And I was trying to figure out where to send him. And I was looking at all these different, public school, private school, whatnot. And we went to his preschool orientation. And I will never forget this. We left and I said to my husband, I said, holy shit. Oh my God, our kid is literally the only white kid in there. Like, I don't know, none of the other, I walked in there thinking like all these moms and I, we were going to be cool. We're going to like have coffee after drop off. We're going to hit the gym together. Like we were going to be hanging out all day, every day. And I'm telling you right now, not a single parent spoke English. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And my mom, who taught in inclusion classrooms for 30 something years, she's like, Kim, you chose right. He's in an inclusion school. Like he has kids from all walks of life. There were some kids that spoke Russian, some kids that spoke Polish, some kids that spoke Spanish, some that spoke English. And I was able to relate with these moms on the fact that we were moms and we had preschoolers and our kids got along and they played together so well. But that first day, I remember Landon came home and he was like, Mommy, so-and-so in my class has a learning disability. And we had this long conversation about it. And he learned not a whole lot from preschool that first year, because the first year is really just about structure and socialization. But he learned so much from being in an inclusion classroom where he got to learn like what other kids' challenges were and share what his challenges were. And he was such a great peer. And the one thing I'll never forget on his report card was she wrote down that he was one of the most supportive, loving, encouraging peers that she's ever had. And it reminded me of that when she was saying there's no line in her kid's sandbox. Like, I think this world would be such a better place if all of our kids were that way and there was no lines. And it's really hard as a parent to instill that in your children, but you have to just keep reminding them. Like, I still have to do it with Landon. He's in first grade now. But he's still that kid. When he sees a kid crying on the blacktop, he goes over and he drops whatever he's doing, puts his arm around the kid and tries to ask why he's crying. So I'm very proud of that. And I think that that's something that we should all try to be better at. And I love when she wrote when she said every person's dance looks different from everyone else, when she was talking about like when she takes her hip hop class. Somebody who has had ballet experience, her hip hop style may look totally different than somebody who's come from the streets and has danced hip hop for their whole life, Okay, last chapter, chapter 20, the lie. I need a hero, a keeper. I've built my life on not giving up on the goals I set for myself. That is like, if I could just plaster that on every single person's wall, in their mirror, like somewhere, that is so crucial. Like, build your life on never giving up on your goals. Number one, what does Rachel claim is the core theme of her life? If you were asked to state the core theme of your life, the one message you want to give to others, what might it be? Her core theme, only you have the power to change your life. No one can make you into something good or bad, not even God, without your help. This is kind of what we were talking about back when we were way back discussing chapter 16. Nobody can force you to do anything if you don't want to do it first. So when I was talking about like the bike analogy, and Landon learning how to ride the bike or somebody learning how to ride the bike, you first have to decide. That's what I love about like our slogan at Beachbody is decide, commit, succeed. Because that decision stage, that I always say there's like the contemplation stage before the decision stage. That contemplation stage, you know how many people live in that stage and they never get to the decision stage. And then do you know how many people get to the decision stage and they don't commit? And then how many people get to commitment stage, but they don't succeed? So every single thing that you set out to do in your life, say to yourself, I'm contemplating this. I'm going to decide to do this. I'm committing and doing this. I succeeded because I did it. So go through that step process when you're looking at your goals. You have the ability to change your life. How much do you desire change? One of the things that I always say to people is, you have to get to a place where your desire to change is greater than the desire to remain the same. And if you can't get to a place where you want the change more than you want to be where you are, it's not going to happen. You need to prove to yourself that you can do it, that you are capable of anything that you set your mind to. The author writes a lot about strengths and increasing strength and powering through. How can we come to a balanced view of our own strength? This, I just wrote down the pages, so I'm just going to read them real quick. You, exhausted mother of 3 who's considering heading back to work but is afraid she's been out of the loop too long. You, 50-pound overweight and conscious that your health is in jeopardy if you don't make drastic changes. You in your early 20s who wants love but gives away your body in order to feel connection and instead only feels emptier. You who wants better relationships with the people you love but can't let go of your anger in order to get there. You, all of you, any of you. Stop waiting for someone else to fix your life. Stop assuming that someday it will magically improve on its own. Stop presuming that if you only have the right job, the right man, the right house, the right car, the right whatever, that your life will become what you've always dreamed of. Be honest about who you are and what you need to do to make a change. Girl, get a hold of your life. Stop medicating. Stop hiding out. Stop being afraid. Stop giving away pieces of yourself. Stop saying you can't do it. Stop the negative self-talk. Stop abusing your body. Stop putting it off for tomorrow or Monday or next year. Stop crying about what happened and take control of what happens next. Get up right now. Rise up from where you've been. Scrub away the tears and the pain of yesterday and start again. Girl, wash your face. So the last thing just asks, like, how has this book affected you? I could literally go on for hours, and I'm going to spare you guys the details because I'm more interested in how it's affected everybody else. The biggest thing that I've learned from this book is that the power of I am, the power of taking control of your own life. Like, I've always lived my life feeling like the victim, like something happened to me. And I have never forgotten that quote where she says, what if you stop thinking things happen to you and you started having the mindset that things happen for you? That's like the big takeaway point for me from this book. Like, stop playing the victim, because playing the victim, you just live in this place where you just feel sorry for yourself, and you're so stuck on feeling sorry for yourself that you're not trying to move forward and you're not trying to better yourself or your life. So that was my biggest takeaway. My last takeaway is, a dream is a wish your heart makes. It's one of my favorite Disney quotes ever. I don't need to find anyone right now in this moment. I'm my own hero. You have the power. Stop waiting for someone else to fix your life. Bottom line, you are in control. So I know that took a while, but those were some lengthy and deep chapters. So I'm going to let you guys unmute yourselves, or I will help you. I will unmute you. And then if you want to share anything at all, the floor is yours.
Do you want to share something?
Go for it.
Oh my gosh, you said so many good things, Kim. I don't even know where to begin, but I think I'll just follow up on what you were talking about as far as momentum.
Yep.
Because that's also something that I feel like was a big takeaway for me.
Yep.
That maybe it's a perfectionistic tendency or something like that. Sometimes if I commit to something and say, well, you know, I'm going to work out every day, or I'm going to, you know, push myself a little farther.
Yep.
Like to not like set myself up for failure, but push, you know, a little more each time, without planning for enough like rest.
Yep.
Or without making some concessions. Like, I don't have to go like 100% in yoga class every single time I go.
Yep.
Like, if I'm tired, I still want to show up, but
Yep.
I don't have to quite go all in every
Yep.
time.
Absolutely.
It's just the momentum that's the important part. Like, if I want to be in child's pose for like a few poses,
Yep.
I can do that, but it's more important, at least for me, my yoga practice is really important for like mindfulness and, you know, calming my nerves and a lot of different stuff. But for some reason, like, I'll be like, oh, well, I don't want to go because I'm already so tired. And, you know, I start to panic
Yep.
a little bit, or, you know, spin myself up. And it's like, no, just go. And you don't have to give it like 110% today. You'll do that some other day.
Yep. That's right. One of my, I wrote this down while you were talking, because this is like something that I want you to like write down and like plaster everywhere. And and think of every time you're in that mindset, because I am a perfectionist through and through as well. And I think it is, you know, have you ever gone for a job interview when they're like, tell me your strengths and tell me your weaknesses? And my dad has owned a computer company for, I don't even know, almost 40 years, I think. And he's a very successful businessman. He's done a lot of interviews. And I can remember my very first job interview I had after pharmacy school. That actually meant something, because when we first graduated, Marianne can attest, you can probably attest too, Erin, like everybody was so desperate. They were like, we'll give you 30 grand and we'll take you, you know, and if you had a pulse, they hired you. But my very first job interview that I went for, that was like a job I really wanted, that was like out of my realm, that was not retail, that I knew was going to be a little bit harder to get into. It was Mass Health DUR. And it was like a 2-hour commute. And I was like, I don't even care. I hated retail so much. I was like, I'll drive 2 hours every day and work 10 hours and drive 2 hours home. So of course, as luck would have it, long story short, I ended up getting offered the position when I was 8 months pregnant with my son. They came back to me and offered me the position. I was like, of course, I can't drive 4 hours a day in a car, and I'm not going to do this, commit to this job with a newborn. But anyways, my dad had said to me, I called him, I said, I really want this job and I'm going for this interview. Like, what do I do? And he said, the best advice that I can give you, and the thing that I love the most when I'm in an interview with somebody, is when they tell me a strength of theirs or a weakness of theirs. That's what it is. When they tell me a weakness of theirs, but also list it as a strength. And so one of the things I always say when I'm talking to somebody is, I'm like, I'm a perfectionist, and it can be exhausting, and it sometimes discourages me from trying to commit to anything because of that fear of failure, or fear of like not hitting that 100%. But it's a strength, because I am a perfectionist and I will work really, really hard at trying to be perfect. So it's one of those things where it's a great quality to have, but when it comes to health and fitness, it's one of the biggest downfalls. And so Teresa can also attest to this. This is a conversation that her and I have had many, many a times in both regards to health and fitness, but also to coaching. And she's the same way as that. She's a perfectionist through and through. And what I always tell her is, done is better than perfect, and look for progress, not perfection. So there are certain areas of your life where I will tell you, like, yeah, sure, aim for perfection. Like if you fall on your face, you're going to hit the stars still, because you're aiming for perfection. Yeah. You have to be able to say, like, with health and fitness, particularly, exactly like you said, you know what, if I go to yoga and I hit child's pose 3 times when I'm not supposed to, I still went to yoga. Right. And I did 45 minutes of yoga that I wouldn't have done because I was afraid 60 minutes of yoga wasn't going to happen. And I tell people that all the time. This new Shaun T program that I'm in this test group for, that I'm not supposed to talk a lot about, but so I'm going to be super, super careful. It's 20 minutes and it is hard as hell. And I consider myself to be like super physically fit. Like I teach 9 to 11 fitness classes a week. I do my own workout on top of that. I run, 8 miles for my runs. Like, I consider myself physically fit. 20 minutes, a brutal ass kicking. And I was talking to somebody today. We do a Zoom call, all of us that are in the test group, because the workouts are live from 12:30 to 1. And we all get on this Zoom call like we are right now, and we work out together because it's very motivating. You're getting your ass handed to you here with Shaun, and you see everybody moving. So you're like, they're moving, I need to keep moving. You don't see them, but you just see movement. And we got to the end, and we always kind of talk at the end. And one of the girls in the test group, she goes, you guys, and she started crying. She said, if I weren't in this test group, I would have quit by now. And she's like, this is why I've never completed a Shaun T program, because it's too damn freaking hard. And I said to her, I go, Allie, you have done 2 weeks of Shaun T brutal workouts. I'm here. I'm an Insanity Live instructor. I teach an hour of Insanity. I consider myself an athlete. I've done all of his programs through and through, and I am stopping. I am modifying. I am dying. Be proud of yourself. Stop focusing on what you didn't do and focus on what the hell you did do. And when I said that to her, she started crying, because she's like, I guess I've never looked at it like that. I've always looked at it as, I had to stop, instead of saying I had to stop because I was working my damn ass off, And so Again, she's a perfectionist, and she looks at it like, if I don't start at minute 0 and end at minute 20 without taking a break, without doing anything differently than what Sean told me to do, I failed. And it's really easy to get stuck in that. And she said, before we had this talk, she's like, there's going to be so many people that are going to commit to this program and that are starting their journey, and they're going to quit. And I said to her, I said, now that's you selling yourself short as a coach. Because if you're an effective coach, it will not be an option for them to quit. Just like she said to me, if I weren't in this test group, I would have quit. So what I said to her was, then you need to be Sean, and your group needs to be this test group. Your group needs to be so solid and so valuable, and you need to be so valuable as a coach and so motivating and so inspiring. It is not an option for them to quit, even when they feel like they didn't hit perfection. And so that's something that I really, really try to be different at as a coach. Like, there's 450,000 coaches, but my biggest goal as a coach is to get people to see that done is better than perfect. And if you go into your workout, sure, I would love for you every day to go into your workout and be like, I'm going to crush this. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to do all 40 minutes of it. I'm going to be a rock star. Of course, that would be amazing. Are your results going to be better? Possibly. But here's the other thing I always tell people. Cortisol, and you guys know this, you're pharmacists, you're smart, you're intelligent, you get the way that the body works. Cortisol is the enemy, and cortisol happens in response to what? Stress. Exactly. So if you are stressing about your workouts, or if you're all day like, oh my God, I have to work out, it's gonna be awful, I'm gonna be terrible, I'm gonna like literally stop, I'm gonna hit child's pose 5 times, whatever it is you're saying to yourself, all that time that you are stressing about perfection, you doing way more damage than hitting child's pose 3 or 4 times. So the key to success in health and fitness is progress, not perfection. Done better than perfect. And being able to say to yourself, like, I'm going into this and I'm going to give 100%, and whatever that 100% looks like is perfect. Mm-hmm. Because it's whatever you could give. And maybe some days are going to be a little bit more of a struggle than others. But I always say to my class, when we're in the middle of insanity and it's really hard, I'll say to them, number 1, all I want you guys to focus on right now is your why and your goals and nothing else. Because when you can focus on those 2 things, if your why and your goals are powerful, like they should be, as powerful and strong as they should be, you can do anything, because remember, it all comes from here. But the other thing that I always tell them is, I want you guys to envision in your head right now all the people that are normally here. So like, let's say we have 12 people in a class. I'll say to them, how many people do we usually have here? And they're all annoyed and pissed at me at this point. So they're like, 12. And I'm like, okay, how many people are here right now? You and how many other people? 5, 6, 7, whatever the number might be. Right now, I want you to look around the room and find one person that is usually here that's not here. And think of that person and what they could be doing right now, because they're not here and you are. So whatever you do, usually it's dig deeper when I tell them this, which is the last 3 minutes of the complete insanity of the class. Whatever you do for the next 3 minutes is going to be leaps and bounds above whatever the hell they're doing, because they're not here. So you just have to have that mindset of, I showed up. Because at the end of the day, showing up is way better than hiding, because you're afraid that it's not going to be perfect. And you'll always make more progress showing up than, not, because you were afraid that you couldn't do perfection.
I'm guilty of that too.
What'd you say?
I'm guilty of that too, Erin.
Oh yeah.
Away from that.
Yeah.
It's funny, because I think that a lot of the times, like, it's like I was talking about my friend. She's going through a really hard time. She's going through divorce, and she's trying this whole new deal with health and fitness, and she's trying all these new workouts and new time nutrition and everything. And we're talking about how, when she slips, she just completely lets it all go. And when she said to me, this is going to make zero sense to you. And I said to her, it actually makes a lot of sense to me. She was like, really? It's one of those things where the more that you work with people or are exposed to people, like what you guys think is probably individualized to you, 9 times out of 10, I hear with people that I work with. Like the majority of the time that people quit a program, it's because they went into their workout and they felt like they couldn't do it, when they should have just been focusing on what they could do. So it's always shifting your mindset. Instead of I can't, it's I can. Instead of I didn't, it's I did. So if you are getting to, like, if you go to yoga and you're like, oh, I didn't do this when they were doing this, like change it to I did this, or.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Well, just in response to what you were saying, Mary, as well, like, and your group can, like, that socialization component of it, like not just doing an activity like going to a happy hour with strangers or being somewhere with strangers, but like actually being with people or are getting to know is like really important for that. And I'm listening to a book right now that talks about basically how coaches are encouraging their athletes to hang out with each other and stuff, like mandatory fun in a way, because it really helps with like cortisol and testosterone balances, and it's improving their performance.
Yep.
So I know just working out myself, and then since I started doing yoga in the beginning of this year, and I can still continue to work out by myself when I run, but that the times a week that I do go to yoga and I'm surrounded by other people that enjoy it and encourage each other, and like,
or you see them,
become a very important aspect of my fitness. And Erin actually is one of the ones that encouraged me to start going to a class. So it's kind of funny.
So one of the things too that, like when you were saying coaches encouraging athletes to hang out together and stuff, one of the biggest reasons why I feel like people are so successful in Beachbody, people are always like, I'm not a home workout person, or I'm a gym person. Like I'm not self-motivated. So if you find yourself a Beachbody coach that just sells you a program, you won't be successful. The programs are amazing, but you're not going to be successful because you're not going to commit. You're going to decide. You may commit by buying it, but you're not going to hit that succeed, that last step, because you're not surrounding yourself. Remember, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. So the other thing I forget, I think it was in the book, You Are a Badass. That's the next book that I really want to do a book club on, because that was like my Bible for literally like 3 years.
That's a fun book.
So good. Oh my God. You have to read it. It's Girl Wash Your Face took its place, but it was on my table for 3 years, and I still have. In fact, I'll show you real quick. They have these calendars, daily calendars, and every day there's like a quote or something from the book that you can read off. And so I literally used to keep the book out, and throughout the book, there's like bolded big quotes that are kind of like keepers in this. And I would just, if I was having a tough day, I would just like open up the book and I would find one and I would read it to myself, and it would always just like somehow speak to me. So it's literally my Bible for the longest time. You Are a Badass. But there's a chapter in it, and we talked about it a lot in one of my groups, like, I don't know, probably almost 2 years ago, where she talks about, like, again, how you're the average of the people that you surround yourself with. But she literally goes into it and she's like, okay, so think about it like this. If you are somebody who has, let's say my friend who has like 100 pounds to lose, okay? And you hang out with all these other people that are obese and have more than 100 pounds to lose. And you are trying to lose those 100 pounds, and you're trying to eat healthier, and you're trying to exercise. But the other 4 people that you always hang out with that also have the same situation as you and all this weight to lose are not trying to lose the weight, are not eating healthy, are not exercising. Do you think you're going to be successful? No. Because it's so easy to follow the pack, right? Like if the pack is headed this way, you're going to go that way too, because you're like, well, everybody's going that way. There must be something good that way, right? It's a lot harder to go the opposite direction. So that's why these groups, I feel like, are so, so powerful, because you have all of these women that are trying to better themselves, that are trying to lose weight or eat healthier or whatever their goal or their why might be. Maybe it's they're just trying to be more positive throughout their day. By surrounding yourself with people of common goals, and like you said, Erin, like, you know, they're finding that their hormone levels and all these things are literally, it's like, have you ever heard where they say all the women that live in a house, like if you put a ton, like The Bachelor, you put a ton of women in a house, they're all going to get their period on the same cycle. It's like, but it really does happen. We feed off of each other. And this goes back to, I still have to post, I'm going to write myself a note. Oh my God, what was his name? The guy who talked at Summit, Sean Akers. Thank you. I say thank you, like you guys help me. Sean Akers. So the guy who talked at our summit, and he talked about, I shared his presentation on happiness and how we search, like, when I graduate from college, I'm going to be happy. And when I have kids, I'm going to be happy. And we have this thought process that, like, success leads to happiness, when in fact it's the opposite. Happiness leads to success. He also, part of his presentation was on a study that they did on fireflies. And it was the coolest presentation I've ever heard. And I'm gonna post it. It's like it's a pretty long video, but I'm gonna post it. But he talks about how, you know, they were going down the Nile River and they started seeing like all of these flashes, like lighting up at the same time. And these scientists were like, oh my God, lightning, it's like lightning striking this surface. And then this happened. They thought it was lightning, and they were like, that never happens. And what they started realizing was that they were lightning bugs that were all pulsing at the same exact time. And there's only 2 places in the world that happens, the Nile River and then some other random place. And so they did this study where they focused, they looked at the reproduction rate of fireflies, right? That's what they're called, right? Fireflies, I think. When they are pulsing together versus when they are pulsing separately, not in sync. And what they found was their chance of reproduction, the reproduction rate went from like 2 or 4% to like 97% for every single firefly. And it was so cool because he was like, you would think that them all lighting up at the same time would screw each other, because you'd be like, well, who do I go to? They're all, because that's how they reproduce, right? When they flash, that's how they find each other. They mate and they reproduce. So if they're all lighting up at the same time, you would think that they'd be like, who do I go to? Look at all these options, right? But it's this point of like, we shine brighter when we shine together. And it was like the coolest analogy I think I've ever heard. If you don't follow him, Sean Akers, it's SHAUNACHORS, I believe. He shares like all of these really cool, you guys are, again, you're science people, so you'll appreciate, like I appreciate a study and a scientific explanation, you know? So I'm sorry, it's SHAWN, and then it's Aker, ACHOR. And he has a whole link tree on his Instagram that has like all of his studies and presentations he's done. You can pull them up on YouTube. But I will try, Colleen has the video of him from Summit. I'm going to try to share it in the group, because it was a really cool presentation. And I related to it a lot in the health and fitness coaching world, which is why he presented it. It was at our Coach Summit. And he said, don't be that coach that tries to shine bright by itself. And, you know, if you do something and you have a lot of success with that method, you try to like keep it to yourself and you don't share it. You know, we do like national wake up calls every single Monday, and we have a coach that speaks on it every Monday, and they share a tip. And this is a coach that, you know, hardly is ever on my team, in my upline or my downline, but they're on this call and they're sharing this wealth of knowledge. And sometimes they even have like documents or files that we share with each other, like, hey, I've been using this to sign people up and it's been really helpful. Or maybe it's a video that they created and put on YouTube. But that's why I love this community, because there's a lot of MLMs that are selfish. And this community is a very selfless community. And that's what I tell the girls that sign up to be coaches on my team. I tell them, this is a non-negotiable. If you become a selfish coach, you won't be on my team. I won't give you the option. I will call coach relations and ask them to cancel you on my team, because it's not an option. I am building a selfless team of people that give. So I even tell my girls, like, when they talk to me and they'll say, I sold a challenge pack. I'm like, I'm sorry, you what? And they'll say, I changed a life. Because that's just that's my standpoint, and that's why we do what we do. We don't sell anything. We're changing people's lives, and we're sharing the opportunity. So I love that. I kind of want to know that book. What was it again, Erin? The book you said?
Peak Performance.
Peak Performance.
It has like a great cover.
Do you know who the author is?
It's actually on my Facebook. We should become Facebook friends.
I think we are, aren't we?
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, well, we need to change that.
It's called Peak Performance, Elevate Your Game, Avoid Burnout, and Thrive with the New Science of Success by Brad Stulberg, Stulberg, and Steve Magness, Magness.
Love it. Thank you. I'm trying to find you on Facebook right now.
I just want to hear from Mary really quick. Was there anything else that you thought was a big takeaway for you?
I loved this book. And it was funny because like I kept seeing it pop up. I hadn't really heard of this book until I think Teresa had said something about it, and someone else had said something about it, and I was like, oh, I want to read that. And then I got involved in the book group. And now I've seen like quotes posted on it on Facebook. I saw like a quote on Instagram. I just feel like it's everywhere now. Someone was talking about their podcast. Erin, we were talking about the podcast, but I just feel like it keeps coming up. And one of my other friends was talking about potentially reading it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm reading it. You have to read it. I love it. But I just think it's funny, like sometimes like just the fact that everywhere I look, I seem to be seeing
reticular activating system starts to see it everywhere.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's we had her on. I think I'm hoping that they're going to solidify her at our summit this year to speak, because I could listen to her talk all day. But we had her on each month when we make what's called Success Club, meaning you've sold 3 challenge packs or more each month. You have a certain Success Club award or prize that you get. Sometimes it's a shirt, sometimes it's a hat, sometimes whatever. And the month of, I think it was April, if you hit Success Club, you got a Zoom call like this with Rachel. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. And let me tell you, she talked for about 48 minutes. And I sat there and I was like, the wealth of knowledge that I just got from 48 minutes. In fact, I actually went back and I pulled up the playback and I recorded it on I sat with my phone like this for 48 minutes, because I was like, I don't ever want to lose this recording. I don't ever want to not have this in my life. I'll have to find it on my iPad and share it in here, because she talked a lot about things as a mom. And in fact, she actually let us as coaches ask her questions. And she was like, I want you guys to lead this conversation. And she was like, don't make it, about my book, because you've all read it. You know the chapters, you know the topics. Like, ask me something that's not in my book. And so, people asked, oh my God, all sorts of amazing questions. And she was sitting on the floor of her living room, like literally sitting on the floor. She's just the most down to earth person, and you can hear it on her podcast. You can, she's just a very simple person, but she's had this massive amount of success now. And I think it's really cool. I can't wait to read her sequel. We're going to have to do a book club for her sequel. Girl, Stop Apologizing. She's dropped a couple of it's going to be amazing.
I'm so guilty of that. I'm always apologizing for things.
Yep. And
I think you were just apologizing for apologizing, Marianne.
I do.
It's true. It's also, I think, a part of the perfectionist persona too. Like, you feel like you always have to be perfect, and if you do anything that's not perfection, you have to apologize for it. And it's, it's such a huge part of that's how I've been my whole life as well. And she's dropped little nuggets from the book, and like just the little things that she's dropped, I'm like, I can't even wait to read this book. And I used to be one of those people that rolled my eyes at personal development. Like when I first started coaching, I told my coach, I don't want to know my online office. I'm never working this business. I love these programs. I live, eat, and breathe this shit, but I'm not selling it in no way, shape, or form. Don't even talk to me about it. I'm not interested. And
I said, look at you now.
I know. And it's funny because I can remember, like, it was shortly after I had Mackenzie, and I was basically doing it anyways. Like I would literally, I was a coach. Okay. So I had a link I could have sent, but I had my coach's link, and I would literally, as a coach, tell people, yeah, this is what program I did. This is how I lost all the baby weight. And I would send them my coach's link. And she was like, you're an idiot. Like, all you have to do is send your own link. And I was like, no, it's the principle. I'm not coaching. I told you I wouldn't do it. And she's like, do you know how much money you could be making in commission? And I was like, I don't care. It's not about the money. And she was like, well, no shit, it's not. But like, you're so stupid and stubborn. And so I remember one day, I finally was like, fine, I'll send the link, but I'm still not going to log into my online office because I don't give a shit. It's not going to be anything substantial anyways. And I remember the day my husband does all of our banking, and he came to me and he's like, honey, what the hell happened with Beachbody? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we had $450 something deposited into our account this. And I was like, well, he goes, did you like buy a ton of shit and like have to return it or something? Or like, did they owe us a lot of, did they take money out of our account by mistake for some reason? And I was like, I don't know. So I called Beachbody and I'm like, something happened. Like, there's been a huge mistake. There was $400 and some odd deposited into my account. And the guy's like, no, ma'am, that's your commission. And I was like, excuse me? And we had this moment where I was like, I am an idiot. Like, I just realized, like, why have I not been doing this? I'm so stupid. But I did have a point with this. What was my point? Oh my God, that's so bad. We were talking about online office, and I don't even remember. I totally got sidetracked. There was a point to it. Shit, what was my point? I don't know. I lost it. But I'm sure I had some. I'll watch this back and be like, "Go, Kim." But it had something to do with stop, apologize. I don't know.
I was saying I apologize all the time, and then somehow that got
started.
Oh, I don't even know.
Dropping good nuggets as possibilities for the book.
I know. What the hell? Stubborn.
Anyway, Marge.
The other thing about this book, I think.
Oh, I remember. Hold on. Let me just, sorry. I finally remembered it. Okay. I was saying about personal development, and when I finally decided, I was like, fine, I'm going to do this stupid coaching thing. I'll just try it. And my coach was like, well, you need to do personal development. That's one of the daily vitals. And I was like, what the hell is a daily vital? And she was like, you have to do personal development. It's something you have to do every day. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. She was like, she's like, I'll give you a list of books. And I'm like, no, I'm not reading these stupid books. And my dad, as like a business owner, is always like, every Father's Day, he sends me a list of books. And it's always like, high performance habits, or like all of these books. And I would be like, Dad, this is so stupid that this is what you do with your time. And then I read You Are a Badass. And it like literally changed my life. And I was like, okay, maybe that's what I'm learning with this coaching thing. Like, I have to get uncomfortable and then realize that my ass is stubborn and just say like, okay, I have to admit that was helpful. So now I do all the personal development I can. And I loved, and when in Girl Wash Your Face, when Rachel says like, find the things that you struggle with the most and like read about them or listen to them. You know, when she was talking about like reading books or listening to podcasts, like there was one book that I read about anxiety, and I'm not gonna be able to think of the name of it right now, but it helped me so much. And I love this community because there's a lot of people, like, you know, Marianne and I went to college together. There's a lot of people we went to college with that are the same age as us, that are, you know, doing whatever they're doing with their lives. And it's not to say that it's bad or whatever, but they're not eating well. They're not taking care of themselves. You know, they don't live a healthy lifestyle. They just go to work, and when they're not at work, they're drinking or doing whatever the hell, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of them. And I love that I'm just surrounded every single day by powerful women that uplift other women. Like, that's so important to me. Yeah, it's huge. And I think that that's what I wanted so badly out of the sorority. And I didn't necessarily feel like I got that. And this is like my own little sorority where I feel like, yes, I relate. Maybe we're not the same in every single aspect, but we have like these common core values to take care of ourselves, and we want to do and be better, and we want to encourage others to do the same. We don't want to beat people down. We don't want to bad talk. We don't want to be negative about other people's choices. Like, we just want to uplift each other and cheer each other on. And I think that there's just like something so powerful about that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. One other quick thing about the book too, which I think is really cool, is you might not to be able to relate with every single thing in the book, but I feel like everyone can relate to something in the book.
Yep. So true. Like the adoption chapter, I was like, oh, where is she going with it? Should I read it? But a lot of the things that I wrote down about the adoption chapter, like, I want you to see someone who kept showing up again and again, even when it was tearing her apart. Like, that was her speaking about her experience with adoption. Yeah. I can relate so much to that when it comes to IVF, and I can relate so much to that as a health and fitness Nazi and a coach. And like, there are so many points to that chapter. Like, yes, it's hard, but our dream doesn't go away when it gets hard. Like, stuff like that.
Right. Write that down too.
Yeah, it's like, I really just like, there's so many, and that's why I love doing this book club. That's what I love the most about it was, and that's why, you know, there were some weeks where I was like, no, if people don't come on, I'm not going to do it, because I want it to be interactive. Like, because what my takeaways might have been from the chapter may be totally different than what you got just reading Rachel's experience. So you get 2 experiences now, and then you can share yours, and then you have 3 and 4. And so, you know, by everybody posting in the group and sharing their chapter takeaways, which kind of failed off towards the end, but like in the beginning, you know, the first 2.5 weeks, everybody sharing that chapter, like their takeaway. It was really cool to see very seldom was everybody's takeaway or what they posted the same. So like, what my biggest thing that I wanted to share from the chapter was usually different from everybody else. Maybe there was a couple of repeats, but a lot of the time we related on totally different levels or from totally different past experiences. That's super cool. Yeah. I've loved this so much. Thank you guys for being such an active part of it, and for, you know, hopping on each week and participating. And it's been really
moderating cool. It is a lot of, like, I'm sure you get a lot out of it as well, but like, I know it does take some effort and work, and, you know,
so thank you
checking in. So thank you so much for facilitating all of that.
I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I'm really excited. We haven't come up with a theme. We're kind of like laying low for the month of October, but I would love for November to be You Are a Badass book club. I could read it like, oh my God, I could read that book all day, every day. There's so many other books that I would love to do and focus on. And there's so many other themes that we've kind of tossed ideas around. And like, we've talked about doing a crock pot group where everything is like one crock pot, healthy recipes. You know, we'll do something fun for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, like thankful things throughout the month. And I just think I think there's, you know, we're really trying to find a common theme each month that everybody can connect with, and then add the fitness and health part into it as a bonus. So like, you get the healthy recipes, you get the fitness motivation, but that's not the core focus, because what we're realizing is that the perfectionists in a lot of people, that intimidates them. You know, it's intimidating to them to come into a health and fitness group. There's so many people that joined our group this past month that joined for the book club that were like, I'm all in. I can buy a book. It's $12. I can read a book that takes X amount of days or hours. But if you ask them to commit to health and fitness related thing, their backs go up against the wall and they're like, this is a scam. I'm out. That's too expensive. I don't have the money. What was really cool to see this month was how many people came into this for the book club, and how many people became focused on their health and fitness as a side piece. So You know, both Teresa and I have had a lot of people that were like, wait, this group is really cool. Like, this is a really cool community, and I've gotten a lot out of it. So it's been really, really cool to, I think sometimes you have to show people that health and fitness isn't a scary thing, and it's not, you know, this big hoax, and we're trying to shove everybody into this group and take all your money. You know, it really is, it's a community and it's a family. And again, that's like the most important thing to me, is at the end of the day, like, these groups have to add value to your life in some way. And that's my job. And if they're not, then we have to regroup and figure out how to do that. So
yeah, it worked for me because I made the promise to myself to go to yoga like twice a week for the entire 8 weeks that I was doing this clinical, and I've completely committed to that. And I think this group has been a big part of that.
Makes me so happy.
Since starting this group, I tried the aerial yoga for the first time, which I don't know if I would have, but it's kind of like pushed me. And I'm actually signed up for my first 5K ever on Saturday, and I'm really excited for it.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm telling you, like, again, pretty much every single bullet point at the end of these, look at my, but pretty much every single, like, one of her bullet points at the end was surround yourself with, like we talked about. And that is everything. Like, again, it can't say it enough. You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. And if those 5 people don't align with your values or your goals or your why, you know, I had a friend that we were best friends, all grade school, middle school, high school. And then I went to college, and I went to pharmacy school, and she stayed at a community school, and she lived with her parents. And so she was still in where we grew up, in the same community. And we kind of drifted apart, and it really killed me, because I was like, she was my best friend for 20 some odd years. And, you know, how could we be like sisters? I mean, we spent every waking second together, and I'm like, and then I go off to college and she stays here. And you know, it was my mom who said, you're going to go through different walks of life, different seasons of life, and your core 5 or your core people are going to change through every single season. And that's okay. It's okay that who your best friend and your sister was and your sidekick was through grade school, middle school, high school, that season of your life isn't necessarily who, you know, is with you in your season of college. And then what's even more interesting is when you graduate college, and, you know, I was somebody who went to pharmacy school, and I met my husband, and we got married right out the gates, and we tried having kids right away. And so we had kids before a lot of, you know, my other 2 best friends were still single. They were not married. They were not engaged. They were not even in a serious relationship. So they were still doing the, like, every weekend, let's all get together and hang out by the lake. And I was doing I'm married and I'm a pharmacist and I'm thinking about having a family season of life. And again, we drifted completely apart. And that happens a lot when you have kids and you have, you know, friends that have been your friends forever. And all of a sudden you're the one that goes to bed at 8 o'clock at night because you have kids. But it's interesting because it just goes to show you that it all changed, you know, your core group should change. And a lot of people will say, like, well, so-and-so and I don't get along anymore. She's really changed since having kids, or so-and-so, you know, changed when they had kids, so I don't hang out with them anymore. You're supposed to change. Think about it. If you, from the day you're in grade school to the day you die, are the same exact person, isn't that boring? You know, like, and so as you change through each season, that means you may not align with your values with the same people you used to. I look at, you know, my wedding anniversary 10 years ago yesterday. I talked to 2 of my bridesmaids because they're my sister-in-law and my sister. All of the friends I had at my wedding, I don't even talk to anymore. Not even like I don't see them as often as I'd like to. They're not in my life. I don't, you know, my best friend in college, my college roommate for 3.5 years, I don't speak to. We just drifted apart. And sometimes that can be hard, but I think that that's way better than trying to, it's like that excess baggage. You know, I don't know if you guys saw my Instagram post that I did about like leaves on the tree. And, that freak October storm that we had when my son was born. And I remember laying in the hospital bed. He was literally born, and we had the snowstorm that night. And we were coming, or no, I'm sorry, it was the day we were coming home. So it was the next day. And the nurse was like, are you guys, like, do you have a generator? Are you going to be okay? And I was like, why the hell is this lady talking to me about a generator? I'm like, am I delusional? It's October. What is she concerned about? Why is everybody worried about this snowstorm? And we lost power 2 weeks. We were without power, and we lived with my mom and my brother and his whole family. And I had a newborn. Like, I literally was, just had birth a kid, and I'm trying to like boil water in the Keurig to clean myself. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It was awful. Biggest nightmare of my life. So, we were staying with my parents, and see, I got sidetracked again. I got distracted. It's the worst tonight. Hold on. I'll think of it. It's so bad. I'm so distracted. Did have a point too.
Sorry, and I was distracted because I was looking for you on Instagram.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, that helped me. Okay. So I did this post. It's Roberts K3 is my Insta. But I did this post, and I talked about how that snowstorm was so bad and so many trees fell because they hadn't shed their leaves yet, and they were dead. There were still dead leaves on the tree that they hadn't shed. And I talked about how trees, why they shed their leaves, and they shed the dead weight because that makes them more equipped to go through storms or stormy periods. And so, like, when the snow fell in October and the leaves hadn't fallen from the trees yet, the leaves held so much more than the bare branches that so many trees fell and we lost power. And I was literally saying, like, that's what it's like when you hold on to dead weight or relationships that don't serve you, or toxic relationships. It's like you're carrying all this extra weight, and eventually you're going to be the tree that cracks and falls and breaks if you don't shed that dead weight. And that's like every season of life that you go through. When you set new goals, say to yourself, who am I surrounded by? And are those 5 people or however many people, are they aligned? Are their values and their whys and their goals aligned with mine? Or if they're not, that's okay. But are they going to hinder my success, or are they going to further my success? Like, are these the people that are going to lift me up and empower me and support me so I can get to those goals? And if you look at the people around you and the answer to that is no, then you have to shed the dead weight. Absolutely. And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, absolutely. And also the other hard question, which is crazy hard, is like, how am I showing up in this relationship?
Mm-hmm.
For the relationships I do have. Yep. Which
I don't want to be the dead weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, like, so true.
How am I contributing to this relationship, where, maybe things aren't going so well in the relationship right now? How am I showing up right now?
Yep. Because it's easy to put the focus on what the other person is doing, and again, play the victim. And the biggest thing that I've learned is by victimizing yourself, you're never going to go anywhere, because you're so focused on feeling sorry for yourself that there's no opportunity for growth. You got to put your head down and say, like, they always say there's 3 sides to a story: his side, her side, and the truth. And that's so true for every relationship. It's a 2-way street. And I also find that, like, the relationships that I value, that I know are super valuable to my life, I kind of like rank them, and not even just rank them, but I like put a ton of emphasis on the ones that I know add the most value to my life. So like my friend, who has been one of my best friends since college, I love my time with her. I thoroughly enjoy every second I'm with her. She cares about my kids. I care about hers. I know that there's been times where she's dropped everything to be in my life, and to drive here to go to my showers and my wedding and all of these things, my kids' birthday parties. And she's going through a really hard time right now. She's going through a divorce, and right now it's a separation, but it's going to be a divorce. It's kind of headed that direction, and they're in the process. And there was many nights where she would call me at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I would be like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. But some nights it was 3-4 hours I was on the phone with her, and I would get off the phone and I would say to my husband, you know what? I don't even feel bad about how exhausted I am. I don't even care about how tired I'm going to be in the morning, because there's not a question in my mind that she would do the same for me. And so maybe there's other people who would call my phone at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night that'd be like, why are they calling? Well, they don't, I'll call them tomorrow. But you have to be able to like take a good look at yourself. Just like Erin said, like, what am I adding? What value am I adding in these people's lives? And be honest with yourself. And if you're not adding a lot, like I went through a very selfish period of time where I was postpartum with Mackenzie, and I was so focused on my own sorrows and drowning and all of that, that I added zero value. I didn't go to any of my family functions. I didn't go to any birthday party. I literally hid from the whole world because I was just stuck in my own mess, and I didn't want to be around anybody else and their, happiness or whatever you might want to say. And I had to take a good look at myself and say, like, I'm sitting here right now feeling sorry for myself that I'm looking around and I don't have anybody. But have I been there for them? Am I expecting of them what I haven't given to them? And sometimes it sucks because you're like, well, that makes me feel like total shit, and that made me feel worse than I already felt. But it's more productive than just victimizing yourself and wallowing in your sorrows and saying, oh, poor me. I always say, I hate the people that play the woe is me, because playing the woe is me is not productive for anybody, and it's not going to solve problems, and it's not going to create solutions. So that's such a huge point that you made, Erin. I love that. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being on this call.
You are awesome.
Being such an awesome part of this. This was so fun. I loved every single second of it. And I'm going to kick Teresa's ass for not being on these. No, I'm just kidding. I just so you notice, I'm making sure that was still recording. I'm kidding. I loved having you guys on here, and I appreciate you both very, very much. And this was fun. So I'm going to stop the recording. I am going to upload this. I'll upload it into the group so it will be there, because Marianne, I know you missed a couple of chunks of it. So, feel free to go back, listen to the recording. And then if you guys have anything that comes up, from here on out, feel free to post in the group, hang out in there, and kick some ass. Girl, wash your face. Sorry, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.